There is this crazy fly that's just flying around. So if you see my cat run around behind me or whatever, that's what it is. Welcome back to the channel. Hi everyone. Good to see you all. So in my last video I talked about how I had to move. And here we are, we're in the new apartment. I'm recording in my living room because it's a much smaller apartment now. But yeah, I'm very happy about it. If you see anything that looks messy, don't look at it. Ignore it. I'll fix it probably next week. I don't know if this is where I'm going to film, but my bookshelf isn't set up yet, so won't be filming there. But if you have never been to the channel before, hi, my name is Cameron. I make a lot of content about books I read and everything like that, and every month I do a breakdown of everything that I read. So that's what today's video is. I get very rambly, I have a good time. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and get started, but every time I do this I do some buying stats and then I do some like actual reading stats. So we're gonna break that down, but as many of you who have probably seen the previous video know, I got Libby last month or in February or something, and I have not bought a single book since then. Which is very good. It's a very good spending habit to not constantly be buying books and to utilize your local library. But I haven't bought a single book in March or April. I would really like to buy some books this month, aka May, but I don't know, I just moved and everything's expensive right now. So moving plus everything being expensive doesn't leave a whole lot of wiggle room for actually buying books, but you know. But anyway, for April I did not buy any books. Excellent spending habit. So we are gonna get into some of the books I read this month. I started 16 books and I finished 15. I started reading a book and I was like, I'll get this finished by the end of the month, and then I did not. So you're gonna hear about it on May's what I read. So in the meantime, let me look at my notes that I took. Tragic news. I've been so busy this last month, I did not update my reading journal once. So, I think I've become a person who is not necessarily a reading journal person. The mail's here. But I've become a person who's not really necessarily a reading journal person. I might try and figure out like a virtual way to do it, like to be able to update it on my phone or my iPad or something. But you know, we will see. But in terms of books I read, we'll say I finished 15 books this month. 9 of them were audiobooks, because somehow I found myself becoming an audiobook person. I had a long commute before I moved, like I got a new job and then had a bit of a longer commute. So that might be, I'm so sorry, the mailman just got here and he's so distracting. But yeah, I just moved, and for a period of time I had like a 40-minute commute. That'll happen less, but I was like, well, I might as well listen to audiobooks during this time. So 9 of the books I read were audiobooks, 6 were ebooks, and I'm just gonna I'm not gonna break down all of them. I didn't feel like a lot of them were important enough for a breakdown, but I will discuss some of my favorites and least favorites, and of course my goal books. Every month I read a classic book, a translated book, and a non-fiction book. So we'll talk about all of those. But let's do stats first. So, the books I read, the physical books. So when I count page numbers, I count, obviously, the physical pages that I read. This might be my smallest month, but I only read 1,589 pages. 1,000 of which, specifically 1,097 of which, were in one day. So, oops. But, that being said, because so much of what I read was audiobooks, I actually read for 61 hours this month, and I try to have a general goal of reading 50 hours every month because I know that's an achievable goal for me. But yeah, So I was especially proud of that one. But yeah, not a whole lot of physical pages read. Now that I moved and like should be in a new environment, that should slow down a little. But you know, we will definitely see about that. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I got a new tattoo. It's a bat. Look at him. He's so cute. Yeah, just noticed that when I was turning my camera back on. But yeah, so out of the 15 books I read, 2 of them were rereads, which I haven't reread a whole lot recently, so I figured I would get back into a few of them, and I will talk about one of them. But yeah, so let's talk about the star ratings. The average star rating for this month was a flat out 4 stars. It was a really successful reading month. I picked up a lot of books that I really liked. Some I really didn't, but no 1 stars, which is good, which helps raise the average a little bit. But yeah, let me break down each of these star ratings for you. Maybe I'll scoot this sideways a little bit. Yeah. Alright, so my average star rating was 4 stars. 2 books I gave 2 stars. 1 book I gave 2.5 stars. 1 book I gave 3.5 stars. 3 books I gave 4 stars. 4 books I gave 4.5 stars, and 4 books I gave 5 stars, which that's the most 5 stars I've definitely given out this year. So a lot of successful books that I picked up, which I was very happy about. So now we're gonna get more into the highlights of this month. We're gonna talk a little bit about what were some of my favorites, what were some of my least favorites. I read a lot of graphic novels this month also. I read 4 graphic novels. I think most of the physical books I read were graphic novels, which is why I was able to knock out 1,000 pages in one day. I think I just read like 3 graphic novels on top of each other. But that's an aside. Okay, so going through the list of like my goal books. So my classic this month, and also the shortest book I physically read. My classic this month was A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. It's my first Virginia Woolf that I have ever read. I don't know how I've managed to get around it. I don't know if it's known as her best work. It's short. I think it's only about 70 pages. I was not like the biggest fan of it. I think I ended up giving it a 2.5 or a 3.5. Hold on. A 2.5. Just because I felt very neutral on it. So if I've been wanting to read Orlando. That was on hold for several months at my library. So comment down below of what you think, because I would like to read that. But yeah, let me know how Orlando is, or if you have another favorite Virginia Woolf, you should tell me what that is, so I can definitely read that. So my translated novel was also the worst book I read, and I'm noticing a common trend. The book I read, my translated work, I believe was originally translated from Dutch. It's The Dinner by Herman Koch. I doubt that's how you pronounce it in Dutch, but you know. And there's a common theme of the books I really don't like, and it's just rich people not getting very many consequences. Like, the premise of the book sounded very interesting. It was like the family went out to dinner to discuss an event that had happened. And I'm not going to spoil it, even if I wasn't a huge fan of it. You might read it and you might find that you really like it. I don't know. We're all individuals for a different reason. Someone might love that book. I was not a huge fan of it. I gave it 2 stars. One of my least favorites of the month, and I'll tell you the other one in a second. But it was just rich people getting no consequences. And I was tired. It was super slow paced. It was very predictable to me. And it didn't even have like a satisfying ending. So, I don't know. It just wasn't for me. The other book that I also said was one of the worst books, which is so funny. This book, it's Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell, which was a book I read in middle school, 6th grade, 7th grade, something like that, and I loved it at the time. I thought it was so good. So when I saw it was available at my library, I was like, I should read that again. I know I loved that book. I read it, and it reads exactly how you would expect a middle school a middle schooler's favorite book. It was so pretentious. It was, like, it was just about these two high schoolers, and one of them is in a very bad situation, let's be clear. But everything is the worst thing in the world to them. And I also didn't love, and I don't know if this is an author's preference thing, I haven't done a whole lot of research on it. The book takes place in the 80s, and one of the main characters is Korean. And the other main character is, like, constantly making racial comments about him. I think it might have been, like, reflective of the time. I'd love to give that author the benefit of the doubt, but I didn't love that. But yeah, it was very pretentious. It was very much like, in your very first, like, high school relationship, you think, like, everything's gonna, like, this is my end game. You're dating someone at 15 years old and you're like, this is the person I'm gonna be with for the rest of my life. No, it's not. And they're, like, literally like, I would do anything for you. You can't even drive. You can't even drive to her house to pick her up. Anyway, yeah, the entire time I was cringing and just being like, why did I like this? And you know what? That's what growing up is for. And that's okay. But, ugh. My nonfiction, and also a book I gave 4.5 stars because I loved it, was called Confessions of a Funeral Director. It is by a guy named Caleb Wilde, who is, like, I think he says he's 5th generation funeral director and mortician, which is crazy. It's just about some of his experiences with death and how there was a period of time in his life where his body nearly shut down because of, like, the stress and essentially sadness with being around so much death, and how he, like, came to terms with it and stuff like that. Really good. I did cry like a baby. Certain stories. It is, I will let you know if you're not someone who's into religious books, because that's your own preference. I don't consider myself hugely religious, but a big portion about this is, like, death in relation to the Christian religion. So if that's not for you, you don't need to pick it up. But I didn't find it particularly invasive or to be too much. So I really enjoyed it. And I think it's actually going to be one that I'm going to, like, keep an eye out for so I can buy later. But it was so sweet. It was my nonfiction, which is why I'm telling you. I don't think it's the best book I read, but it is probably the fastest I've read a nonfiction in a while. So definitely check that out if you think that's for you. So I mentioned that I gave 4 books 5 stars, and I gave another 4 books, I think. Yeah, I gave another 4 books 4.5 stars. So 6 of those books were parts of series, so I'm just going to talk about all of them. Obviously, one of them was Confessions of a Funeral Director, which I just talked about. The other book that I really, really enjoyed, I gave it 5 stars, and it was a standalone, so we'll talk about that one first, was a book called All Good People Here by Ashley Flowers. It's kind of a crime thriller story, but it's about a woman who, when she was really young, her next door neighbor and good friend died suddenly under mysterious circumstances, was killed under mysterious circumstances, and so she comes back to her hometown 30 years later after another little girl goes missing of very similar circumstances. So I thought it was kind of run of the mill when I first picked it up. I was like, I really want to read something high paced, some kind of thriller. And I read it. And because I've read so much of that genre, I can generally assume where the story beats are going. This one was one where I had to, I was listening to it as an audiobook, and I had to pause it when the, final reveal happened, because I was literally mind blown. I was so shocked by what happened, and obviously no spoilers, but it's one of the first thrillers in a while that made me be like, oh my gosh, that is insane. So, if you're a thriller person, if you're a crime person, if you're a murder mystery kind of person, pick up that book. It's very good. Let's talk about the next 3 I rated 4.5 stars. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure. I would probably have to read them again to see why I put them at 4.5 instead of 5, because I have nothing but very fond thoughts about this series. Last month, I read the first 2 volumes of Heartstopper. This month, I read the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. There is a 6th one coming out later this year that I am so excited for. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for it, because the 3rd through the 5th are so good. And very rarely do I think that graphic novels have like excellent pacing, because I feel like the nature of graphic novels is sometimes they just move faster, which is okay. But those 3 had perfect pacing. I loved all of the characters. I've never seen the TV show, so if you've seen the TV show and you love it, please let me know and I'll see if I can watch it. But yeah, so I loved that series. I thought it was really well done. And I am extremely excited for the 6th one. I am gonna wait until they're all 6 out to buy like the box set probably, but y'all know how I love Alice Oseman. You all know how I love Alice Oseman. I already have several of her books on my shelf right now. So yeah, but I might honestly, when the time comes, do a very brief reading like recap of Heartstopper Volume 6. I don't know. Let me know if that's something you're interested for. That would probably be a shorter video. And then we have the trilogy that I gave 5 stars. All 3 of the books I gave 5 stars, which I was really expecting it to go down in quality. There's a car driving by. I was really expecting it to go down in quality as like this series went on, but it's a Marissa Meyer trilogy. It's the Renegades trilogy. If you are at all into superheroes or you love Marissa Meyer's writing, the very first book series that I read by her, I read last year, and that was the Lunar Chronicles, I think is what it's called. But it was Cinder and all of the following books, and I devoured those books. So I knew I had to pick up some more Marissa Meyer this month, and I did, and I was not disappointed. I think she really did a great job with that trilogy. I read it as an audiobook, so I didn't read it as fast as I would have liked to. But I know if I had the books in my hands, I would have read each of them in like a day. Oh my goodness. It was so good. And I know you might be thinking, well, she's very like 2012, like, but I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just how my brain works and her writing just go like this together. I don't know, but I loved it. So if you haven't read it before, definitely check that out. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this very rambly video, as usual. If you do like what I'm doing, give it a like, comment down below, let me know something else I should read, or if you have any thoughts about the books I talked about. If you really enjoy my work, you can go ahead and subscribe. And if you're already subscribed, you should definitely hit that notification bell so you know when I post. Go for a walk in this nice sunny weather. It's sunny where I am. If it's sunny for you, go for a nice walk. Pet your cat. My cat is sleeping right there. Go pet your animal or your cat specifically, and go visit your local library. I will see you all later. Goodbye.